Hey,
Hey, here we go. Everybody, we are Earth's Mightiest Critics. This is the last Earth's Mightiest Critics live stream of 2023. Can you believe it?
no, not
No.
after your moratorium of a year of comic movies. Thought we'd never be here.
I was just going to say, we started off this movie with me completely ignoring the genre, and now we're ending on a comic book movie, on the last comic book movie, not only of the year, but of the DC Extended Universe. James Gunn is going to be taking over, well, he has taken over. He's going to be releasing a Superman movie allegedly in 2025, along with another cartoon shows and spin-offs and who knows what. We'll see if there's even a market for it after AQUAMAN: The Lost Kingdom, a movie that flopped so hard that it did worse in its opening weekend than The Marvels, which was, until then, the lowest bar possible. So we're going to talk about that tonight. And with me, as I mentioned, our Earth's Mightiest Critics, I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Katie Glidewell of the blonde in front herself joining us. Thank you. By the way, you got to prove to us that is not a balloon trident. That can't be a balloon. Oh my gosh, it's bending.
Was she strong?
It's a stuffed trident?
No, it's a balloon.
It's a blow up. It's a blow up.
Trident. Oh, that's beautiful.
That is
Yeah.
nice.
I got this at the press screening.
Nice.
They were handing that out. That was Aquaman 2 merch.
Handing out is a strong word. You know,
Yeah.
I've got my people, and then I also got the little ice cube trays because you know it's set in Antarctica, a significant part of it. So
See here, kids. Katie is what we call in the business an influencer. She is got it above us, guys. Got it above us.
Whole nother level.
Whole nother level.
And you guys are a level above me because I'm in the basement. So
I'm in the basement too. Don't worry. Hey,
Well, I think we'll have
United.
to. We'll have to get into later, Katie. Based on the movie, did you become an under the influencer in order to get through it?
yeah. Well, I think as my comment made when you were on Facebook, it's like it definitely left me damp. But we'll get into that, I think, a little bit later.
Well, it is Jason Momoa, or is it because it was 2 hours long? You just had to you had to wait to.
Oh, look, I mean, there were a varied amount of emotions. Like in the beginning, you know, Jason does it, and Jason with a baby. Hello, okay, fine, yeah,
Yep.
all about that. Nicely done. But then, yeah, I don't know. If you want me to talk about it, I can. But I mean,
We'll get into all of it later. Right
Yeah.
now, let's do the intros because I've got some thoughts, perhaps some surprising thoughts on Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom. But moving right along, we have Don Shanahan, the film obsessive. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
All right, of course. And we have, of course, DC show Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck.
you let
Special Mark
anybody in
Productions.
here. You let anybody in here, man.
It would be a federal crime if we talked about a DC event movie or DC anything and didn't have you on in some capacity, even if it was a pre-recorded video that we played live on the stream. We had to get Mark in here. All right, so this movie had a lot going against it going into its release. Everything from, in my opinion, James Gunn making one of the biggest publicity blunders of all time. I don't know how Warner Brothers allowed him to come out with this, because he came out with like a little bit of a real, it wasn't quite the Marvel style event announcement, but earlier this year he announced, hey, in 2025 we're getting a new Superman. And also, none of the characters in this current iteration of the DCEU are coming back. The actors are all gone. We're starting completely over with a new universe. So, yeah, enjoy the 4 DC movies we have coming out this year, which are basically narrative dead ends. On top of that, you've got the conclusion of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. You've got speculation as to, are they going back and cutting her out of the movie? And she's only in the trailers for like a half a second, so she's not part of the story at all. You know, what... the truth is much stranger than the headlines. But yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of goodwill for this film, which is strange because it's a half decade removed from a $1 billion movie, Aquaman from 2018, which I was surprised to have enjoyed. It was, I think, kind of a turning point for me because I'm not a big fan of the Zack Snyder vision of the DC cinematic universe. I think I've kind of softened on him in some respects since the first time I've seen these movies. But I like the lighter-hearted, more comic booky. Yes, we'll say it, drifting more into the Marvel style of filmmaking with Shazam, with Aquaman, even with Wonder Woman 1984, a movie I will still defend. Sorry, but now we have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Hated the trailer. I thought it was going to be a colossal waste of time. And I was prepared to end this movie or this year crying about a comic book movie. No, I loved Aquaman 2. I was emotional at the end of it, like genuinely kind of welling up, and I hadn't been drinking. I think this movie's fun. I think it does everything that it needs to do. I think it's better. I even like The Flash. So I just want to put this in context, realizing that movie I think would have been saved if they'd given it enough time to fully bake the special effects that they were trying to get across. But just as a story, I thought it was kind of fun and emotional at the end and all that good stuff. Both films end on a very, very goofy kind of what the hell are you doing note. That is almost as if the Warner Brothers went in and recut these goofy endings because they knew like no one's going to take this seriously after this big announcement. But yeah, let's go around the room, the virtual room, and get some high-level thoughts on Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, because I want to know how much of an uphill swim or an upstream swim this is going to be. Am I going to be wading against the currents or with them? How many more sea/fish puns can we squeeze out of one live stream? Katie, let's start with you.
Well,
Dampness.
yeah, the dampness is what I would usually when as all of us do when we leave screenings, we're asked like what we thought of the film, in a couple sentences, all that stuff. This was one of the first times that there wasn't anyone there after the screening, and if they had asked me, I would have said it had its moments, which is the nicest thing I think I could say. The other thing was that some of the dialogue was just some of the worst I have heard, honestly, this year. As I quote, "I'm going to go kill me a dead mermaid." What the F are you saying? And why? One, it's a double negative. Like, what? And two, really? This is what we're doing? It's also, and it's been, as you said, it's been 5 years since the original. I had not seen the first one in probably about 3 years. But I do recall, the animosity between Arthur and his brother Orm. And this became one of those things, the corniness, it's like with the dampness, it then became the corniness with their relationship and their dialogue that I honestly wrote down that it's like brothers don't shake hands, brothers swim and defeat an evil kingdom, because that's what it felt like the majority of this movie was. I think if it had just a little bit more seriousness, but it just was so immature and dumb with some of the dialogue between the two of them. I mean, they barely knew each other in the first one, and they were, and I get it. I mean, Patrick Wilson is the king of Atlantis. Who the hell is this guy coming in, taking his throne, taking his girl, basically just taking everything, and then he's going to be in jail. And then it's like 5 years later, and it's supposed to be like, we got to work together. It's like, I have to go do some king shit, and all that stuff. And I'm like, wow, the dialogue in this is really Oscar worthy. Like, you guys are doing, like, stealing some Shakespeare for this.
Well, let me ask you though, because the dialogue that you're bringing up, those are Aquaman lines, right? It's not like King Orm is saying, "I'm going to go kill me a dead mermaid." Right.
No, that was Manta.
That was Manta,
yeah. That was Manta.
Yeah.
Manta.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, then that's I don't. The thing is, I have heard people mention that line. I think it swam right by me because I don't remember the context or even being like uttered. Like when did he say that, and what was the context of it?
He was in a drive-through line for Long John Silver's.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's where he was.
That was when Black Manta attacked Atlantis, and Mira who I know everyone gives Amber Heard a bunch of crap, but I mean, her character literally did save Aquaman 3 times that I counted. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
give her a break, okay? It's like, this is all about the personal stuff, which, you know, no one seemed to make any big deal, you know, regarding the London, but that's a whole other thing.
Right.
But yeah, but then Black Manta shot her with his ray, and she was, and then he was like, "I'm gonna go kill me a dead mermaid." And I'm like, "Oh, that's one I'm not gonna forget anytime soon." 2023. Thanks for that.
I saw the
Taking that
movie
off the Pillow Talk
today, and
list.
I saw the movie today, and that line didn't even register with me. I think I
No.
was looking at or thinking about the weird injuries on her neck and her chest.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this going to be the excuse they have for like kind of writing her out of the
killing her
picture?
off?
I was
Yeah.
thinking about like other
too.
stuff and not paying attention to that gem of a line. But yeah, point taken. This isn't. This definitely is a movie for kids, and I think that's a that's a part of the thing that contributes to the mess that is the overall DCEU, because you start off on this PG-13, yes, so kids can go see it, but it's definitely more adult fare, and you're ending on something that is very much like, if you've never seen Lord of the Rings, this is almost like the gateway. This is like you come home from watching Aquaman 2 and saying, "Oh my God, Mom, Dad, they had this guy and he was so powerful. He's like a king from thousands of years ago, and there was this magical thing they used to fight people, and then a bunch of people had to take him down, but he comes back in the form of this special thing, and he starts to possess people and turn them evil." And they're like, if you think that's cool,
Yeah.
my friend Pete, Mr. Peter Jackson. So this is a gateway drug to Lord of the Rings.
Let me show you this
Yeah.
Kiwi guy. Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, the special effects I felt like were half and half. Sometimes they were beautiful. The Lost Kingdom, everything I thought about the Lost Kingdom, it's like, okay, this is where you guys put your time and money. Like, that was amazing. Some of it looked like it was straight out of a shark's tail. And
Good call.
but the one thing that when you're, I mean, I still when I took my friend, she was like, "Why are you still staying here even at the end?" I'm like, "Because I have to be the one to tell you if you have to stay at the end or not, because this is part of the job that we have to do." You do not, because there's nothing at the end other than about a minute's worth of names that all worked on the special effects CGI stuff. Like, I remember speaking to someone and we're having a conversation and the names are still going. And I'm thinking, like, man, did they steal Avatar's thunder for the most like minutes? It's like, Avatar's like, look, we've got this many people who worked on our CGI, and Aquaman 2 is like, yeah, hold my beer. This is still going on after. Actually, I think it was an actual minute.
It'd be funny if those credits overlapped, like if they were just taken from, because both are underwater extravaganzas.
Yeah, but I mean, I think DC definitely doesn't need to do anything with babies ever again between the Flash and this.
Oh boy,
that was a big. That was a big, like, wow. If this is how you're going to begin it, this is not the way to do it.
We're gonna pee in the mouth. Twice.
Yeah,
I'm like,
which
what?
like the Flash. Oh.
Yeah.
But
that part didn't bother me. That's
that
like
whole,
a throwback to 3 Men and a Baby. You know, we've seen that. We just haven't seen it in a while. My biggest disappointment was they did it twice with the baby peeing in Flash's not Flash. He probably would have enjoyed that. No, in Aquaman's mouth, right? Because he's changing the diapers and the kid has an overactive bladder. At the very end, I was waiting for the rule of 3 to play out, because Aquaman is in danger, and all of a sudden there's this giant spray from off screen. Of course, it was Mira, but I thought, wouldn't it be so cool if it was the kid?
That would have been
being to save Dad.
Yeah,
that would have been good. One of the highlights for me, though, and who is also a highlight for another film that actually is in, if I had a worse list, Jonathan Rhys Davies. And also Lord of the Rings. I love hearing his voice. I love hearing him do the cry of battle, and it's like, we're gonna have a fight and all that stuff. I mean, this guy is like in his 80s. I mean, who knows? It's like, and I hear his voice and I know you guys are in trouble. You're not going to win. This guy, if he's on that side, you're done. You're done. And it's like, that was honestly, I'm getting chills thinking about it. He was one of my highlights of the film. I didn't think it was the worst. I thought the ending was very Marvel. Wink to we all know who.
I loved that. I loved that. Talk about your
man.
last little sting.
Man.
He did that, and I laughed out loud in the theater. I literally laughed out loud in the
not
theater,
for the reason you did.
and I was like, beautiful. Thank you.
Look, that
shows
was
how
on par with Ezra Miller's tooth falling out. Yeah,
that shows how grasping they are at chasing Marvel. Is like we have nothing left but to ape it for shits and giggles at the end. Just weak sauce. Oh, I laughed too, but for the different reason, for sure.
And that's the thing. Like, Mark, I'm kind of there with you because I cringed, but I was also like, you know, if you're, it's the kamikaze move. It's like we've already decided to fly into into enemy airships.
That's true.
You might as well, you know, joke along the way.
Yeah.
If this wasn't the last DCEU film and they delivered that, it might have landed differently. But the fact that this is officially the last DCEU film,
but
I appreciated it, and I loved that last little kick. It was like just the last little,
but it's
last little kicking the door as you're being pulled out, out of the building.
But it's not a kick in the balls of victory. That's how bad you are. You're kicking and screaming out the door because you couldn't get it right. You know, like,
that was that's all, folks. You know, kind of thing. Look, I think, and in fact, now thinking about it, we did make our rule of three. We made our rule of three with the peeing in the mouth joke. It's just at the very end, it was them peeing in the audience's mouth.
Oh, good point. Is that
true.
what I tasted? Oh gosh.
Yikes. Oh, by the way, Mark, I don't know if that was a pun, but you said officially. That was. I applaud you, sir. All right, so Mark, give us kind of your high-level, quick thoughts on.
Oh no,
on
give
Aquaman.
the hater a chance first.
He read my review. Oh no. Okay.
Okay, Don, let's have it. Let's have it.
No, I was a 2-star out of 5 guy. I love the first one. First one's a blast. The first one, kind of where Katie's coming from when it comes, and I won't call it seriousness. I'll call it majesty. The first one had a good balance of the jovialness that we were missing in a lot of these DC movies when they were overly serious. But it's still, with the special effects and the production design and the scope of what they were trying to tell, had some majesty to it. And I feel like that's just, it's fleeting and in glimpses here where it was still kind of a backbone and a spine in the first one, where that's the part that's missing. Like when we have that little, you know, Family Matters, you know, cheesy theme opening of like, I'm Aquaman and I'm a dad and I'm going to kick some ass. And like, there's my life, you know, like what movie am I watching? It's not Henry Cavill on a camcorder with a bad mustache, but it's not that bad of a movie opening, but it's close where, it's nice to see Jason Momoa throw down, and of course he's the stick that stirs the drink for the jovialness and the spirit of this movie, and it always will be. Thank goodness Jason is Jason. And I'll compliment the movie for bringing back villains. I mean, how often are we in a cycle in a Marvel movie and even in DC movies where everybody's one and done? You know, there's this big cataclysmic thing that happens. The villain, of course, can't stay because we need to kill him off. But they bring back Orm, they bring back Black Manta, and they give them consequential arcs to complete in a movie that's still pretty messy about trying to get to the finish line. But we're not overpacking this with 3 other things going on. It's still just Randall Park tagging along, and then you're 2 villains that are coming in different places with a new push from thanks to the first movie, and I appreciated that because too often this would be, like every sequel syndrome is to double everything, double your villains, double your effects, double your time, double your money spent, and this one didn't do that. It dialed that back, and I appreciated that, but it just still kind of went. It went a lot of places to go nowhere, you know. Like it's still the Ian's heard me talk about this even on his show, that the Pixar's behavior lately, the last maybe 10 years, where every second and third act is run and go get the thing. You know, we got to run and go get the thing. We got to go run and get the thing. No, we ran there, but now we got to run here and go get the thing, and run here and go get the thing. And it's like 4 running here's to go get the things in one movie where you just do 1 running here to go get the thing. This movie is 2/3 running and go getting the thing. And and yes, there's some nice banter back and forth between the brotherly strife that's being healed in the movie, and obviously the villain going through the arc that they're going through with Black Manta, which I appreciated. But it's just, I don't hold the end of the DCU against it. I don't give a shit about Amber Heard and all that drama. I'm there for the movie, and it just this was a tough place to end, and it's probably not their fault, and I'm trying to acknowledge that as I think about where they're at. But if you know you have nothing to go for, or if you I don't know, if you're trying to get to a place of finishing things, you gotta, I don't know, stamp that trident in the ground a little harder than they did. And I feel like the missing ingredient there is kind of where Katie's going. Not so much seriousness, but I'll call it majesty. It's missing a little bit of the bigness that made it so good before, at least in the first one. Still fun, I get it, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I think I slightly disagree. I think the majesty comes out in some of the ways that made the first film so unbelievable, because some of those battle scenes were just crazy, and I think you get a couple of glimpses of that here. We've already established what Atlantis is. We get some of that, I guess, regalness and mystery and darkness when we get into was it Necrus, the Lost Kingdom at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like they don't need to tread a lot of this ground. And actually, I think that the opening, as you called it, the Family Matters opening, is perfectly in line with where Aquaman is at this point in his life. Because at the end of the first movie, he ascends to the throne as the King of Atlantis. And what I think is a great through line from beginning to end with this movie is he finds out that there's more to being king than just fighting sea monsters and sitting around on the throne looking cool. There's a lot of politics and having to deal with interspecies and inner kingdom drama, and he's kind of fed up with it. So he escapes. There's a line, I think Mira actually says it, or maybe it was someone else, says, you spend half your time, no, I think it was one of the council members, you spend half your time, above land with the earthlings or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's because he'd rather be up there hanging out with his dad and his infant kid and doing dirt bike wheelies and, just being goofy, because when he goes back down to work, it's a lot of bureaucracy and he can't really be himself. So even when he has to go on this adventure to break his brother out of jail, someone that he hates, to save the planet from Manta and this weird green, I don't know, goo or smoke or whatever, he sees it as kind of one last hurrah. This is a buddy cop movie.
It is.
It's also a classic slobs versus snobs film, but embodied in just two people. And I think that's what really works. I think the relationship between Orm and Arthur Curry is one of the strongest relationships I've seen in one of these DC films. It's predictable from beginning to end. You're not going to go into this as an adult saying, "Oh, I'm expecting something completely original, and this doesn't cut it." You have to put yourself in the mindset of this really is not an all ages movie, because there's some dark stuff in here. I think James Wan is really able to kind of touch back on his horror roots in some key parts. Mm-hmm. But this really is a family friendly kind of crowd pleasing kind of thing. I think in that mold, it steps out of that box in a good way, and I think it also descends into there's peeing in the mouth gags, which we should have been done with back in the 80s probably. Yeah,
there's one more thing it's missing other than the majesty, and maybe it is a little piece of majesty. We never see Jason Momoa shirtless, and that's a great disappointment. I'm going to say that out loud.
Amen.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It would.
Amen.
With a body like that, you need that.
Show that off. You don't bring the Cadillac out of the garage without opening the doors, man. Come on,
But look, he bears his soul at the end of the film with that heartfelt conversation with his brother.
Put an ass shot. This is Game of Thrones. Jason Momoa. Get some schlong. Get some ass. Come on. Let's.
Schlong. This is a PG-13 movie.
Let's get the Loch Ness monster in here.
You want Black Manta and him to just whip it out and do a measuring contest?
That would be
no.
That's in a different version. That's in a different version.
I would say if this was the 80s, but even the 80s, then it would be rated X.
That's true. Yeah. But no, come on, shirtless Momoa. If we're, come on, but there's some majesty right there. It's missing. So.
I'm just thinking of the adult version of this. Anyway, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Well, this is probably one of my lower rated DC films, but I still gave it 3 out of 5. I found a lot of entertainment in it. I understand its warts and all, but it does a few things, whereas a lot of people are saying we haven't seen this before. And I'm like, well, the relationship necessary for me, I love the relationship between the brothers. Even with a little bit of the dialogue, I think the core and the strongest thing is the relationship between Orm and Aquaman. I think their banter is great. Yes, Aquaman's lines are a bit cringy, but they're supposed to be. He's supposed to be the cringy brother. So while on one hand, yeah, it is bad. On the other hand, I'm like, come on. Have anyone seen Thor: Love and Thunder? Everybody,
I still haven't. Probably won't.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying that there were a lot of people that are really hating on this and thought Thor was okay, and Love and Thunder was okay. They gave it kind of a pass because MCU. I'm like, you know what? I enjoyed both of them. I enjoy the humor. One of the things though that does is the relationship between the brothers that it broke away from in the first one, and that the MCU really didn't cover, except kind of in Ragnarok, is the relationship between the brothers. You actually feel like they're connected and they love. You didn't get that with Thor really until Ragnarok, and then it kind of faded after that.
Right.
To where, Ragnarok had the strongest demonstration in the MCU of relationship between two guys who are brothers, the brotherly love, if you will. Mm-hmm. Here, a lot of the core and heart of this film all the way through is at no real point do you get, that's why I loved Orm's character quite a bit. Because he's a guy who doesn't like his brother, but the minute he heard the kingdom's in trouble, he's like, okay, I'm going to go help you.
Right.
And then, he didn't at any point grab the bad trident and try to stab Arthur with it at any point, where I'm saying MCU probably would have played that angle at one point and said, have the brothers kind of fight while they're fighting the bad guys, and then you got that they don't do that, and they stayed consistent. Also, Aquaman 2 stands on its own, and it does one of the few things that either DC or Marvel haven't gotten around. Is this is a sequel to Aquaman. This is not a sequel to the phase or the universe. This is a direct sequel to Aquaman.
True.
Like you guys said, they brought back the characters. This felt like an old school sequel as well. It's like we've established all that stuff before in the first one. Now we're just having fun. And I had fun. Even though it's one of the lower ratings, I still gave it a positive column. And at the end, I was entertained and I really enjoyed it. And I liked what they were doing. I think there were some missed moments. I almost think they tried to do too much in this as far as plots go. I love the idea of the Black Manta revenge. I liked that, but then they have some other components in there as well. Like we mentioned, him dealing with the King thing, and that kind of became more of a major player. So they got a lot of different ideas, and any one of those they could have picked, but they picked them all.
Yeah.
I think the problem with the king, and I can't remember his name, the basically the Sauron character, I think it's less a problem of narrative or plot as it is design. Yeah. Because there's so much, Mount Doom. There's so much Sauron from the Lord of the Rings flashbacks that you change the color palette, and it's the same design character pretty much.
Yeah,
especially the crown.
Crown, the whole I got my hand chopped off so that my power source was denied me. I feel like there was an avenue here where they could have freed this entity from beneath the ice, and maybe it was a completely psychic being. I mean, we established early on in the film that baby Aquaman, or what, Arthur Jr. I think was his name. Mm-hmm. He can talk to fish. We see the kind of the psychic projections, which I thought that was straight out of like Super Friends or like a comic book. I like that
intentionally so,
right?
I believe,
use that to take possession of Black Manta. And I mean, the Black Trident is cool and everything, but it's just the one ring. And
well, I also think the nefarious plot is nonsensical because, what would be faster, getting the Frozen Kingdom out? Chiseling out the Frozen Kingdom or increasing the Earth's greenhouse gases gradually thanks to silly-ass furnaces? Oh my gosh, it's a fast version of getting through this story,
It's like his motivation is unclear.
It's Dr. Evil level stuff for a second there, yeah.
Well, his motivation is a bit unclear because it seems like he wants to destroy the world by unleashing this ancient gas, which, I thought that was kind of neat because on one level, you hear all these news reports of the Earth is accelerating, it's heating up, and basically all going to fry. But then we see what's actually going on with the island that the gas, the volcano or whatever it's coming out of, the immediate area is mutating everything, growing everything big. There's, I think, a really great sequence in this jungle that reminded me of like something like Kong Skull Island, where they run into a giant rat that's being eaten by giant grasshoppers.
There's some Conan Doyle stuff going on there.
Right, and that's the thing. This movie, it feels like a 3-issue comic book, miniseries or something, because they're not just stuck underwater. They're going to all these different types of locations. There's different types of adventures. They run into different characters, and that's what I thought. The trailers sell this movie as something completely flat and uninteresting and goofy, and there is goofiness to it, but I feel like the goofiness is pretty solidly bookended. You start off kind of silly with, as we mentioned, Aquaman's narration. You end up silly with that, wackadoo Tony Stark press conference, but things get pretty adventurous and, adventure comedy serious and towards the middle. It's not completely goofy, and I think where it does get, there's some good comedy in the disposition, particularly of Patrick Wilson. He does a great job in this movie. There's some,
that's a good part for him, and he hit the gym, so
Oh,
but the thing is, the whole thing is,
got him shirtless.
Oh my god!
Right? No, isn't that enough? He was shirtless like 3 times.
Momoa,
that should be good for at least one Momoa.
No.
The Wilson Momoa scale, the Mimosa scale.
Tech flex competition.
Both shirtless. You win the mom audience who don't care about what's going on.
You elevate dampness to something higher. Just saying,
It goes from dampness to moist to then full on wet.
Get it, girl.
There you go.
Yep, that's what we need.
Let's go. If we're gonna do this,
then you really got moms going, oh, you want to see the Aquaman sequel? Yeah,
I'll go see the Aquaman.
Boys.
Yeah, exactly.
It becomes the next Barbie movie. Everyone's going to see it.
No, Ian, you're right about the adventurous part, though, and that's kind of where I'm saying it's in a hurry. Like, I don't mind all the places they went if you can maybe slow down, stop and put a little wonder on it for a while, or kind of assess the threat and the risk a little bit, like kind of pause and go down, every now and then with, again, a little bit of majesty. So, yeah.
Well, here's the thing, though, and it's the thing that I've noticed. And don't get me wrong, I like the fact that we have shorter runtime movies. Don't get me wrong. But there seems to be, there's a difference between having a shorter runtime movie and cutting yourself short from the story you set up just so that you have the shorter runtime. And this past year, especially in 2023, not just an MCU film, films in general that I've watched, they seem rushed. All of them. All the really big, a lot of the really big ones feel rushed. They don't really give you a breather or give you a bit. That's why I love Godzilla -1. Godzilla -1 does a perfect balance. You want to look at,
still have to see that.
You want to see a good balance of action and drama and everything, and why people are raving about it. There's a reason why, because I watched that and I'm like, okay, it's still, this a longer runtime, but I didn't feel it at all. Because of the way the story plays out. But a lot of these MCU films, and even the series, even these series that they're doing, everything feels rushed. Like they got to get to the end right now. Whereas if you cut out maybe some of the stuff or just retool it a little bit, or I don't mind a longer film if it calls for it. Some of the MCU films got a little long in the tooth because I was like, we've covered this ground already. We're covering it again. It's like, no. But in here, it almost feels like they're rushing to the finish line. They actually kind of did that with the Flash a bit too, as to where they were rushing to the finish line because they're like, the DCU,
thing, Mark.
We're running out of time here. It's at the end of the year, so let's just wrap it up. Or even Blue Beetle, and I loved Blue Beetle. Don't get me wrong, I loved Blue Beetle quite a bit. I had a lot of fun with that. Again, another standalone for the most part comic book film.
Yeah, and
that's part of the reason why. And I'll stop talking. But that's why I did enjoy Aquaman versus Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, was because it was its own contained story, which is, all honesty, very few and far between with our comic book films in recent years. And I think that's a mistake for those comic book films, even though they set up the universe. I think they should have gone back, we've talked about it here as well, gone back to your street level single character of sorts, to where the threat isn't global. So you're wondering, where the hell are the rest of the Avengers and every other superhero that lives in this planet, on the planet? bring it down to at least a scope to where it's not as big. You know, like this one would have been great if you had Black Manta and the staff. You didn't add the possession. He just found this artifact that makes him a badass, and he uses this to get to, say, the factory that builds the gas that ruins the planet. But you don't need him being possessed. He's already driven by revenge. You could have easily taken out the Sauron part, just have him, while he has the staff, maybe get a flashback to history that there's such a device in the Arctic, and he knows it. Doesn't need to be possessed, but it either taints the air, or it taints the ocean, or it would be something that would level Atlantis, or something along that lines, to where you wouldn't need the additional element of the psychic possession, because he was already driven by revenge.
Well, that's a good point. I think that taking that element out would have reduced the runtime certainly by about 15 or 20 minutes, making even leaner comic book movie.
Well, you could add other things though to it. You could add a little bit more to it. You could give a little bit of a breather of exploring a little more of how Arthur Curry doesn't want to be king. I like that.
But that's the thing is, like, I understand. I accept that you guys are saying that this movie needed to take a little breather. I felt it was perfectly balanced. You know, it's not like it's nonstop action from start to finish. True. I think we get enough in that opening montage to say, yes, I'm bored of politics, and these people are. I'm falling asleep on the throne because they're talking about like Atlantean zoning issues or whatever. I don't think we need more of that necessarily, but perhaps spending your bullets in other ways that are more effective, possibly entertaining, or opening up some ideas that we haven't seen before. Yeah, I'm all for that too. We were talking before we went live. Mark, you mentioned the kind of self-contained nature of this, and Katie, I think you were the one to point out, and folks out there either live or in the future, can you point out, is this the first of the DCEU films that has absolutely no connection, no character, no outside character reference to Wonder Woman, Batman, Flash, any other DCEU properties? Because it seems very self-contained. I made the joke that, you know, they could have at least had the press conference at the end like be in Gotham Harbor, but no, it's this nondescript city. Maybe it's New York, I don't know.
Yeah,
but that's it's an interesting idea.
But yeah, I don't.
And
wasn't it Ellis Island?
I thought it was because of the UN whole thing.
Yeah,
it was.
The X-Men should show up then with Magneto and shit from 23 years ago. That's
that senator who turned into a fish. Yeah, there you go.
Ian McKellen shows up going, "My dear boy," you know, and just fucks with people. That'd be great, you know.
Bruce Davison who turned into a jellyfish. Yeah, it's like everybody
right into the movie.
I mean,
blah, 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 blah.
It's the problem that they all ran into, and I'm not throwing MCU under the bus. I like any movie that entertains me. Okay, I don't care if it's DC or MCU. You guys know that. Though I will defend MCU films that more people hate, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But because I enjoyed them more, but for different perspectives. But as far as both these properties go, and in general, we even see it in Sony. You know, we're finding more and more that Spider-Man No Way Home was a fluke rather than a standard.
Oh, yeah.
Because it had those elements, but they did it properly. But, you know, Sony, look at me. I love, and I did this, and I was giving you guys a hard time earlier, but how everybody's like, oh, there's only one MCU film coming out next year, and that's Deadpool 3. And I'm like, no, you've got Kraven, you got Madam Web, and you're supposed to have Venom 3. And since it's a multiverse, they are part of it.
Yeah, but very loosely. I mean, it even says the beginning of those movies in association with Marvel.
Well, I know, but the thing is,
they're like, huh? They're like
Marvel,
taking
there's still Marvel comic book films, is what I'm saying. Is the fact, but people are glossing over those because all three of those to the MCU fan base do not look interesting at all to them. You can see it, you know.
People with eyes don't find those interesting.
You know, I'm just saying that. Ever since Infinity War, and I'll say Infinity War, not Endgame, because I liked Infinity War more. Since Infinity War, yeah, I know. I liked Infinity War more than Endgame. They both have painted themselves in the corner, feel the need that they have to get everybody into it because it's in the universe. So they come up with these stories that gets everybody in when they could come up with smaller stories. One of the first things that why Avengers worked is because everybody had their own story and arc before they got together. And then after they finished the global threat, they went back to their own on the ground type of threats for the next couple of films. I mean, it got big, but I mean, they still, and then you got the tease of the bigger galaxy in the end credit sequence, and that was what made everybody hungry. But after Endgame and you ended your 10-year plan, you're like, oh crap, they like this. Well, we got to connect everything now because everybody's in the same universe. We got to do a Russell T Davies to Doctor Who. Everything's a global threat now. We can't have our
I told y'all on this very show, the multiverse was a bad idea, and I stand by that to this day.
Here's the thing. Now, it's just like comics, all right? Comics can be great. Comics can be terrible. They're everything in between. The idea of the multiverse is not a bad one. It's all in the execution. It's in the plotting and the writing. And the problem, as we saw with 4 and 5, phases 4 and 5 with Marvel, and we'll get back onto Aquaman in a second, is
and if we don't,
well, there wasn't that, phases 1 through 3. You don't see a whiteboard or hear about a whiteboard in Kevin Feige's office where they're plotting everything out. It's just like, you do this and you do this, and if things contradict, who cares? It's content. People are going to show up because we got the brand name. So yeah, the multiverse saga could have worked very well, but it worked out so poorly to the point where A, I stopped watching comic book movies for a year, and B, now that I'm back watching comic book movies and even reading comics, if I see something that has a multiverse tie-in, no matter what the imprint is, when I'm at the comic shop, I skip it because I'm so tired of this lack of imagination drivel, which has tainted all the creatives in this kind of space. But yeah, I think I like the self-containedness of Aquaman 2. I like that they brought back the villain. It feels like a movie that could have come out 20 years ago. That's not tainted by all of the things that we've discussed before. And yeah, it's not. I don't know. I think it is kind of great in its own way. It's different than the other DC films. I think it's better than the last handful of Marvel films that we've seen, except for maybe Guardians 3. But that's its own. That truly is its own pocket thing at that point.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it's flopped at the box office. Now, people have said the first Aquaman, when it came out, it had a slow start, slow opening weekend, but then it went on to make $1 billion. But this movie, I think, made roughly half of what that film made. It is one of those weird tomato meter situations where the audience score is about twice as high as the critic score. So maybe look at some kind of word of mouth. I mean, I just feel like in this kind of weird holiday season we're in, this is the movie that I can recommend people go see if they want something fun and adventurous and true to what it's supposed to be. Unlike, say, I know we're going to disagree on this, but Wonka.
I missed that show last week, and I would have been a supporter.
Of the
Wonka,
pro Wonkas. Okay, I was going to say.
I loved it.
Then it's a good thing you didn't show up.
I know.
Last week, one of us would have been in tears.
I love Wonka. You guys know Wonka?
No, I'm the only one who absolutely hated Wonka. I think it works as a movie if you have never seen the original version and have never read the book. But as far as like whimsical flights of fancy, it's its own thing. But to call it a Willy Wonka prequel, which is they're calling it a prequel, and because that movie flopped, we're never going to get the bridge movie that actually explains what connection Timothée Chalamet's Wonka might have had to Gene Wilder's Wonka.
Because at some point that guy's got to go bitter and turn into the hermit he is. Yeah.
Oh, I have a theory on that.
Oh, it's a girl. It's got to be a girl.
Yeah.
Always is.
Well, no, I think it's. I mean, we're not going to talk about that though.
Nope, sorry. Okay.
Sorry.
That was last. Turn back the hands of time last Thursday. Okay.
Well, there you go.
Well, with Kingdom, the Lost Kingdom, even though it didn't like wow me, I still had a lot of fun. I had more fun with it than some of the other things that have come out superhero wise. But it's one of those things to where I wish we would have had more of these. I think people wouldn't have had as much superhero fatigue if we would have had more films like this. While it's not great, the self-containedness, the kind of boots on the ground, even though I know we had the pollution global thing, but we still, for the most part, he's still battling just Black Manta. He's not black. He's not fighting a huge force. He's like, and by the way, Black Manta's second in command, whoever she was, I forgot her name offhand. She was badass. I loved her character quite a bit.
Yeah,
She,
I mean,
she wasn't really a character though, Mark. She was unnamed, like
Right-handed
Lady
person.
Boss henchman. I don't know
I
what
forgot her
she.
name.
Stingray.
Yeah, Stingray. Yeah, I
Oh.
think it
Yeah,
was Stingray.
which the only reason why I know that is because it's on IMDb.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, but I mean, she was incredible.
She
She was great. We haven't even really talked
Incredible.
about this.
What? No. Let's pull. I'm stopping the bus. What did she do that was incredible besides be a second in command to Black Manta? Did she
was
have
more
any
than that.
dialogue? Did she
was
say
more
anything
badass in her
besides like?
fighting. She was more
she-
badass at her fighting than Black Manta at some points.
True.
When did she fight? She sat in a chair most of the time and like ordered people to like speed up the ship.
But she's got the robot mech thing.
Yeah.
She was yeah.
Huh. You just watched the movie today. I saw it 2 years ago. How are you missing it?
Yes. Again, what did she actually do?
The bar's low. I'm happy she's a badass and can
She's a
stand
badass.
next to
She
him,
got
yeah.
to fight. Her and Amber
Right,
Heard
yeah.
had it. I mean,
Right.
I
mean, it's not Undercover Brother. I'm not pulling up chairs and popcorn and watching two chicks fight, but it was pretty good.
What I'm saying
Yeah.
is that could have literally been anybody. Like, I'm not going to remember
But it
that
was
Black
her.
Manta had a sidekick. I mean, Randall
Yeah.
Park was more of a presence in this
Oh,
movie.
and he's not
I'm not
very
going to
good.
say he was not a badass, but he at least had an arc. Yeah, I don't know. I liked the part when the sidekick died in that Sonic like surrounded by whales. I thought that was kind of fun.
that was very Aquaman finish too. I like that. See,
Yeah.
that's a,
Yeah.
There's Aquaman
mean,
moves here for sure.
we've really got to take into account that Aquaman was a joke, even in the later Arthur Curry's, where they basically gave him the beard and made him look like Green Arrow, but with muscles and the trident and everything. Arthur Curry, the Aquaman concept himself, has been kind of a joke for many years in the comic book thing. So the fact that they've been able to do anything at all the way they have, I'm impressed with. And even, and with the whale thing, I liked the whale thing because it made sense within the Aquaman world. That's one of his powers. That is what he would do. And I knew that was coming up the minute they said it was on a specific frequency. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, he's going to bring in some whales or some dolphins. When
He
are
brought
we
in
doing
all
this?
the whales and dolphins.
And he
That
brought
was
all the whales and dolphins, yes.
that was wild.
That's the stuff. That's the stuff. Like, give me some more. I'm with Mark. Give me some more of that. Give me some more. Yeah, just have the scale of what that hero is work for him a little more. Like, there's room for more. Just on wonder. Like, that whale moment's awesome, but I don't have another really good like, damn, look at that guy go moment in the movie, or like look at the powers that he can control and behold. It's more. I'm gonna run around and jump and hit people in my, burly, my burlap PJs.
And I don't know, was the whale moment all him, or was it like it's like teamwork? Like everybody
Yeah,
get your
Which is
whales
nice, too.
together from your points of the ocean and like bring them all together so we can fight this giant ship that's like kicking our butt and stuff. Which I find that very interesting, that with the whales in this, and then the whales in what is it, Okana, the MCU show that's on Disney with Rosario Dawson. That they have the space
Ahsoka.
whales.
Ahsoka, yeah,
Yeah,
space
they have the
whales.
space whales, and
Yeah.
they basically kind of do the same thing. I actually just thought of that, how putting those together. I'm like, that's interesting. Randall Park's character, sort of, I didn't. I don't know.
That's the part of the movie that shaves me 5 minutes right there. Just get rid
It's
of
like
it.
I understand the point of him, because the
You're
reason
human.
why they're looking for what they're looking for is because of him. How he would have obtained that information, I really don't know, considering that there's barely anyone in Atlantis that knows that. But then the whole thing where, I don't know, it's like I thought he was supposed to be like the comic relief, and there's only one part where he actually does that when the doors shut on the deck, and he's like, okay, look guys, I'm really not with them. And that I remember like laughing out loud in the theater with that. But I just felt his character was very, I don't know, it's kind of all over the place. Like I'm with the bad guys, but I'm a good guy. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm still with this because I don't want to get out in the water and drown. But okay, I'm gonna hang on to this and see what happens. And then I feel like at the end, I don't know, was he supposed to be? I felt like he would have loved to have lived in Atlantis and just been, because I felt like the point of his entire existence and all this stuff. But I honestly don't remember what happened to him at the end.
Wasn't King Triton supposed to like grant him gills and bring him in with the other people and reverse Little Mermaid him? No,
yeah, I know. I don't know. It did.
That was a totally different movie.
Powers,
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think your comment about the comic relief, I don't think so. I mean, initially that's what I expected, because he's mostly been in comedies, right?
Yeah.
But no, he's, aside from that one scene, and it was basically down to, I think, his delivery. It was a bit, but that was kind of out of place. But no, he's a serious, kind of straight character who's working for the villain and that has not so much a change of heart. I think he realizes that he's in so deep because his boss man wants to destroy the world because he's become possessed by something. And I think that gets back to the weird motivations of this, ancient king character who seems to want to destroy the entire planet, but that would also take him with it, because he has to understand that if you destroy the upper world, like it's an ecosystem. Mm-hmm. I do want to say that is one nice bit of, I guess, evolution from the first Aquaman to this, where maybe continuity is. Orm didn't like the above world because he felt they were polluting everything and destroying the planet and messing with the Atlantean ecology. In this film, he still kind of feels that way, and we get all these kind of reports of like the Earth is heating up even before this chemical goo gets unleashed. But what Aquaman does when he's trying to rally people and convince them to help the people above is saying, look, this global warming thing, it is a threat, but we need to work together to find ways that if we put our technology and their technology together, we can really solve this problem. It's just kind of a nice message of unity that I think transcends the movie itself. Yes, we've got this problem on the horizon, and there are solutions that we can figure out if we learn how to stop bickering and work together.
So you need Dolph Lundgren to deliver. If I can change, you can change. We all can change. We need Momoa.
The less Dolph Lundgren speaks, the better. I liked seeing him in the movie. I didn't like hearing him in the movie because all I kept thinking of those Old Spice armpit commercials.
I was having Masters of the Universe flashbacks. I don't know about the rest of you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
He was sitting there at one point. There was the blue background and everything. Like, say I have the power. Go for it.
Pull out the sword and it's the one from the other movie just for fun. Yeah.
You
all right.
About,
well, okay, real quick, because we got to wrap up in just a couple of minutes. But Mark, what do you want to say?
I just wanted to say about Randall Park's character. He's the standard. You have your group of villains who are all following the bad guy blindly because they're bad guys. He's the conscience of the group. That was his sole real purpose, is to be the conscience guy. Yes, he didn't like working with him, but he wanted the discovery. He didn't think past his own ambition of just seeing the discovery because he was in love with this idea. And then he realized, oh, this relationship's toxic, literally and figuratively. And, that's where his conscience comes in. And that was his whole big purpose, was for that.
We call that
was planted. Well, the seed was planted in his first scene where he's driving that little trawler across the ice. He's narrating to himself, saying that he's looking for this thing and he's not sure if he'll be able to find it. And if he doesn't, his boss is going to be really mad and he doesn't want to think about what might happen next. So we already understands that it's a relationship built out of fear and not like, hey, I'm going to hook up these cool mercenaries. I think he got stuck there. And eventually the change of conscience comes in, like, oh, this guy isn't just, cruel or mean or evil. He's, demon possessed. But all right, let's take a look at some comments.
Yeah.
Sajiwa's in the house.
I mean,
YouTube running ads on a live show. Do they need money? No, but I do. So yes.
Make it big.
Just joining the video. Was the movie good? You're going to have to go back and watch the replay.
Yep.
And that's the answer to that question, because you're going to get a wide range of opinions. Ocean-wide.
Ads. Yeah. So yeah.
Yes, and ads. There you go. Maybe even ads for Aquaman too.
Yeah.
Aquamans with an S might be a better name. What's up, Aquamans?
Oh boy. I got one last question for the dais here.
Yes.
Do you bring Jason Momoa back as Lobo like he always should have been in the new DCU?
No.
In a heartbeat, I bring in Momoa.
I wouldn't. Look, here's the thing. it's weird to say I wanted an Aquaman 3 coming out of this movie because for all the reasons I think that we've discussed in the panel, I feel like the movie's just starting to reach its potential with these characters and kind of getting into a flow, but we're never going to get it.
Yeah.
So in 2025, after we've had this, 2024 of the off-brand Marvel movies plus the one on-brand Marvel title, I don't know what the landscape's going to be like if there's going to be an appetite for DC movies. I think you got to let Superman come out and be its own thing, see if it works, and then gradually introduce these things. By the time Lobo comes out, it's going to be old man Lobo.
That's true.
Jason Momoa is not going to work for that role anymore.
Chicken. Good point. Okay.
Plus, I mean, I feel like if he was Lobo, I think people just unless it was like an R-rated thing, I think people would just be like, well, it's just Aquaman in a leather jacket.
Lobo would
playing
have
that
to
character
be
now,
R-rated.
kind of.
No, he's no Chris Evans. I gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks. We're gonna wrap it up on that damp, moist, wet note.
We didn't get past damp. The shirt stayed
Still
on.
damp.
Y'all speak for yourself.
I was wet.
Still is wet.
Katie was damp, and Don was barren. So there you go.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm gonna need a mop for my studio after this live stream is over. That's all I gotta say. But no, I really appreciate you guys hanging out and talking Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I know it's kind of a mixed bag for a lot of us. It wasn't a complete train wreck, but it wasn't, up there with in the pantheon of comic book films. It's right there in the middle. It's treading water, as you might say.
Mm-hmm.
But so everybody, I am always Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Katie Glidewell, the blonde in front, Don Shanahan of Film Obsessive and the Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast, and DC Shill himself, Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck of Special Mark Productions. We're closing out 2023 with this live stream. However, I want to say this is not the last Kicking the Seat live stream of 2023. If you are insane, if you hate yourself, if you have gallons upon gallons of coffee, then you can join me January 31st, yes, at 4:30 a.m. Central Time, talking about Dunki, a movie from India, for our last Spotlight India of the year. A great movie starring the incomparable Shah Rukh Khan. I'll be talking about with my friend Shashwat Mukherjee, who lives in India. That's why we're doing it on this time, because it's going to be 4 p.m. He definitely got the better end of the deal on that one. But yeah, come hang out and join us. The link will be in the description and all that good stuff. And if you like this live stream, please like and subscribe to the channel. Support all of my colleagues and friends here. Their information will be down below. And oh, wait a second. We got to end this with Sajiwa. Happy New Year's, Aquamans.
Thank you so much.
That's right.
All right. With that, thank you, everybody. This has been a lot of fun. And yeah, for everyone else, whatever that is, thanks. Take care and have a happy New Year. Aquamans, I'll reiterate the sentiment. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Woo!